Welcome back to the ZEZE MILLZ show. I'm ZEZE MILLZ. It's been a while, but we are back with another important episode. I was going to say I feel like this is not a week late, but obviously last week was sickle cell awareness. There was a lot of talk around it, but we were supposed to film this last week. I wasn't feeling well, so we had to postpone it. But I still think that obviously this is a very, very important conversation. So today we have two special guests. Why do you look so serious for your life? Go on, introduce yourself. Go on.
Hi, I'm Juslin.
Juslin is actually usually behind the camera. So he's in front of the camera today. He was literally relishing in the moment of being mic'd. He could mic himself and he was like to our production manager, no, you need to mic me.
Yeah.
Actually, I need to feel like I'm on the show. So Juslin, thanks for being here.
No worries. Thank you for having me. Yes, I'm Juslin. Obviously, I do ZEZE MILLZ, if you say. But I also
that was funny.
I also raise awareness for sickle cell, being that I have sickle cell myself. So I felt like it's important to be on the show today.
Weird. And
I'm Layla. I'm a mother to a warrior. So my daughter has sickle cell disease, and I'm also the founder of a mental health charity that supports the sickle cell community.
So thank you for both coming on, and like I said, I feel like this is a very important topic, especially within our community. And I do feel like in the last couple of years people are becoming a lot more aware of sickle cell, what it means, how it can affect us. But just explain to me exactly what sickle cell is and how it can affect.
Put simply, sickle cell is a blood disorder. Your body produces cells, and in someone with sickle cell, your body produces abnormal cells. These abnormal cells, if you, just for example purposes, sickle shape, like banana shape, moon crescents. So that cell itself doesn't carry nearly half the same amount as same amount of oxygen as a normal healthy cell does. So when your body's carrying blood everywhere around the body, those ones really kind of tend to get stuck in its travels around the body. And that's where it causes painful episodes, which we call sickle cell crisis. And then it is absolutely horrendous in pain.
Because that's something that obviously I've heard a lot, that phrase, sickle cell crisis. Can you explain to me what the feeling is like?
It's like you've had something heavy placed on top of you. You've been whacked with some object that really hurts. And you've injured your arm or elbow, but then it's still throbbing, and then it's constantly, that pain that you got hit like 2-3 days ago is still carrying on, it's throbbing. And no matter, you're on painkillers and everything, but it still happens day in, day out. And women have likened it, women who have sickle cell, they've likened it to childbirth.
Wow.
And some even say it's worse than childbirth. Obviously I wouldn't know that, but yeah, that's the kind of examples I've thrown about.
Well, so you are a sickle cell
Trait carrier.
I'm going to ask questions because, like I said, I don't know loads about it. So whatever questions I ask, they might sound dumb, but I'm pretty sure there's another person that, so what's the difference? You're a trait carrier.
Yeah.
Is there any difference between being a trait carrier and actually
Full blown?
Yeah.
So with trait carriers, essentially we have the sickled cells as well, but they're at such a diluted level that our sickle percentage is probably like 2% compared to somebody who has sickle cell disease who's, for example, my daughter's sickle percentage is in the 80%.
Wow.
So where I can go my whole life without ever experiencing crisis or pain in any way, they would experience it a lot more frequently because there's just so many of these improper cells in their bodies that stick together and just cause, essentially the cells go around damaging everything. So you have to think wherever blood goes, damage can happen, and nowhere is really safe, so from top down.
So you're a sickle cell trait carrier, and then I'm guessing the father of your child.
Yeah, he's also a trait carrier. So you need 2 trait carriers to have a child that has a 1 in 4 chance actually of having the full-blown condition.
So did you know that he was a trait carrier?
No. So probably a really important conversation to have if you're dating. I knew I was a trait carrier, he knew he was a trait carrier. We just never had that conversation up until the moment of me being pregnant and it coming out that actually, oh my God, we're both trait carriers. So we were on this path of now potentially having a child that has the condition.
When you both had that discussion, did you feel guilt? Or did you feel like, oh my God, we should have had this conversation? Or was it just, I just have to accept it? And
it's a very good question, because in hindsight, I didn't feel guilt because I still didn't understand what sickle cell was or what it would mean. There wasn't enough information in my life prior to having my daughter about sickle cell and what having a child with sickle cell would look like. So even though I found out you have a chance in having a child with sickle cell, I didn't really get, it was kind of like, okay, well, we deal with it and we wait until she's born. And then even after she was born and diagnosed, I still didn't really understand how heavy this journey would be or how big it would be for her.
And what's that been like?
It has been quite intense she's one of the youngest people currently in the UK on regular transfusions. So she receives, from around 9 months, has received blood every 2 to 4 weeks. She has been in quite severe crisis. So a common crisis in young children is called a splenic sequestration. And it's where the spleen takes all the blood from the body and essentially starves the rest of the body of any blood. And the only way to treat that kind of crisis is with a blood transfusion. And the only triggers or sort of identifications of them being in that crisis is just kind of tiredness or feeling low. Sometimes you get a temperature. So it could very easily end in the worst case scenario if you're not vigilant all the time. I think one of the scariest times was we got to the hospital and her blood levels were at 3, and a child's blood level should be above 10, and 1 to 3 is actually organ failure and shutdown. And so we just kind of got there in the nick of time to sort of change her situation, which meant being blue lit to Great Ormond Street and really trying to help her not get to that space. She had another crisis another sort of really serious crisis as a chest crisis, and her body just kind of stopped and she stopped breathing. Again, it was just really, really lucky that I happened to walk in a room at that point, at that time, to notice something was going on, to have to do CPR on her while like being on the phone to the ambulance screaming and saying, you need to get here now.
As a mother, like, how is that dealing with that? Is that one of the reasons why you decided to set up your charity foundation? Is that why? Because like you telling me this, I'm just like, what the hell? But obviously living through it and being in it, are you always like in this constant anxiety?
It is anxiety. The sad or most complicated part of it is it's the anxiety that keeps us vigilant enough to keep our children around. Right. Because a lot of the symptoms are regular symptoms in normal children that normally nobody else would have to worry about. But we have to sit on the edge all the time to make sure that we pick up on the tiniest cues, to make sure that we get them to the hospital in time. It is crippling mentally to be in this hyper state of anxiety, to try and figure out if something's wrong.
Anxiety extends to us as adults as well. And
yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
The adult version, you kind of almost know, especially when you get to a certain age, you kind of can feel a crisis coming on. But with Suki being young, and I commend Layla because she has to physically just watch, whereas we can feel.
Right,
now,
yeah.
Let me try and give you an example what a crisis feels like, or at least when you know it's coming. I have to use analogies to try and help people. So imagine you're on a long stretch of road, one of them American roads, really, really long, and it's dark. You're in your car, but you've broken down. So you're stranded. You're waiting for the next car to come through. When you look down, the headlights you see there, that's a crisis. Right. So you can see it coming dimly. It's really thin. But that car is running towards you. It's racing towards you. And as it's getting closer, that's when crisis now turns into pain. Pain is getting heavier and it's getting harder. And all of a sudden, wherever it hits you, your elbow, your arm, your chest, whereas before you can lift up things, you can't anymore as the car's getting closer. And everything that you do, you need to do pretty much where you take medications or painkillers, whatever it is, distract yourself. You got to do everything to slow that car from getting to you. That's basically what a crisis is.
When did you know, like when you was younger, when was you aware that you had sickle cell?
Oh, early age, very, very early. Just imagine when you're really young and everyone else is playing outside. Your parents are safeguarding you. They're saying you can't go outside, but the weather's hot and everything. With sickle cell, it's very, very difficult to manage it sometimes because anything is a trigger for a crisis. It's too hot, you're not eating enough, or your diet is really bad. Stress, exhaustion. Stress is the biggest one.
Do you think people understand the magnitude of sickle cell?
I don't think so.
I don't think so at all, no.
Because you guys talking to me now, like I know a few people, one of my friends in school had it, but I don't think I realised the magnitude of it or the depth of it. Do you get what I'm saying? It always just kind of seems, you know, someone says, oh, I've got sickle cell. I don't think you think, oh, this is life-threatening.
Yeah.
Not for me anyway, and maybe that's me being ignorant, but I don't feel like we're taught about it enough to say this is a really serious disease.
Right, a combination of things. I think you're right, there isn't enough education, but also we have to consider with the people that we do know around us that have sickle cell, because of the chronic side of it, they are so used to living in this way that it's just a part of their life. Juslin's not going to come every single day and be like, this hurts, this hurts, this hurts, because he's just used to the pain. Like chronic pain is a major part of the condition, and so we just get used to. He gets used to being in it. We get used to being around Juslin in the way that he is. We would never think actually how much pain is Juslin in, and how easy is it for him to be around here. And when it comes to like the other side of general education, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. I personally think that I didn't know about sickle cell until it impacted me. And usually that's how humanity works.
And you was a trait carrier?
Yeah.
So even as being a trait carrier, you just thought, nah.
Yeah, so my parents told me about me being a trait carrier. I had an operation when I was younger for my tonsils, and they told my parents that I was a trait carrier. And all my mum said to me was, don't worry about it, just don't marry a man that has the same thing as you. I was 6.
Right, so you're not...
Yeah, like, I was just like, yeah, sure, mum, whatever. Then it was never a thing in our household. I had one cousin who lives abroad, who I never saw, who was sick. And that's as far as the conversation went. Right. After that, the next time sickle cell became a thing in my life was when I was already pregnant. And then even then they were very much like, there's nothing you can do. Because each journey is so individual, that's another really, like, there's the people that are like my daughter who will be in hospital all the time. And then there's people who may not have experienced a crisis until they're 18. And the variances of crisis are it can be as tiny as pain in just your finger to a heart attack. And that simply.
So is there a cure?
No.
There isn't a cure, but however, there are advances in medical science as well that can help you live a better life than you are right now. Like, because sickle cell is built up, it's created, or at least your cells create them in your bone marrow. There are efforts to try to modify how your cells are created, and that's through gene therapy. But as with everything, it comes with risks.
So, because I understand now though that 2 trait carriers, you can do like IVF and you can remove the gene. You can remove that, because I've heard, I was just doing a little bit of research and I've saw that they can now remove that gene so that 2 people that are trait carriers, they can have a baby that is sickle cell free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, the chances of having 2 trait carriers only have 1 in 4 chance of having a child with sickle cell. So through IVF, you can very much eliminate those chances and pick out the healthier embryos and implanting them. A lot of people do go through genetic counselling to have healthier children.
So you started this, Juslin, you started this group called Sickle Strong Group. Nice name, like it. What made you think I need to do this? It's actually a really good booklet. I'm very proud of you, Juslin. It's very nice. No, it is, because it's it proper breaks it down. Like, it does break it down about who's affected by sickle cell. But what made you? What was there, like a turning point where you was like, I need to do this now?
There was a turning point, and I feel like it's kind of similar to a lot of people's journeys as well. When you're living with sickle cell and you're growing up and everything, you just want to be normal like everyone else, and to the point where you really just want to blend in and look like everyone else. So you won't tell everyone or express to anyone that you actually have this condition. So one day I hit a certain age and I thought, this thing's not going anywhere, and I can't keep lying to people. And I accepted that I actually have sickle cell, and with my acceptance, there's something I can do to help people out. And so I started Sickle Strong in 2016, and it was in collaboration with Backchat, as you can see. Backchat Uncensored had 2 charities, Unsickle Myself, and the charity that I started, the organization I started as well. I basically wanted to start off with giving people the bare basic minimum of what sickle cell is, what it is, how it triggers, what you can do, what the medical advancements now. I don't even want to bombard people with texts, because obviously with sickle cell, if they tell you go and do your own research, you're seeing texts and paragraphs this big. And I know that not everyone's going to read that because people digest information differently. So with the book, I just felt, okay, short paragraphs, little sentences here, give you at least the basics, and then you can go off and start off your own as well. And that is actually how I met Layla as well. She, with what's it called?
Backchat.
Backchat, yeah. With Backchat, I had an email in there, and I left it open for anyone to contact me, and Layla did.
Yeah, I think for me it was, I had this baby, and I think it was the day that I got this diagnosis, and they kind of come into your house and they're like, yeah, your child has this condition, okay, bye. And it was literally, he was in and out of my house within like 5 minutes. I'm just like, processing. And then I remembered that, there was this show, and on the show that they had spoken about sickle cell. And so I just Googled, and I think his email was one of the first emails that I found. And I emailed and I said, look, I have no idea what I'm doing and I need to learn. And so he was like, sure, let's meet up. And I think he was the first conversation that I had.
That's so bad. It's not so bad, because obviously it's brought this together, but it's so bad that you had to go outside of the person that came to give you that news, outside of the NHS, outside of, and then, okay, well, no advice, no nothing.
No, they literally come in, and funnily enough, they usually say, like, no news is good news. You'll find out within 3 days. If you don't hear from us, then your child's fine. And like a couple of weeks had passed, so I was like, okay, she's fine. She doesn't have the condition. And then he came to the house, and he like just knocked randomly, like, I'm the sickle cell nurse. And I was like, what are you doing at my house? And he was like, oh, you don't know your child's diagnosis? Oh yeah, she has HBSS.
What?
That was literally it. Like, that was how it was delivered to me. And I was kind of just, like, I remember ringing in my ears in shock. And then crying for a bit. And then me being me, I'm just very much like, okay, if I have a child who has this thing, then I have to understand what it means for her and what I can do. But yeah, it was very shambolic, like how it was given to me. As I realize now in other conversations, actually it happens so often where they don't really know how to deliver that and that you'll find actually is quite a triggering and traumatic experience for any parent.
Do you feel like there's lack of care because it predominantly affects the African and Caribbean community? Do you feel like they're just a bit like, nah, it is what it is?
It's very hard to not think that. It's very hard to not feel that. And it extends all the way into how they care for you in hospital as well.
Right, yeah.
Everyone, if you ask anyone, they have a story. I have stories as well for days.
Well, it's like they don't care.
Yeah, it's kind of like, obviously, because I think it's because they have too many of us coming in and out, way too many. Like at any given week, someone in there. We have a big community, we're in a big group chat. We try to support each other. Every day you'll hear, I'm in hospital. Even one of my friends just recently went in there 2 days ago. And it's really bad. The stories I've heard and because I don't need it to be, it's not to try and scare anyone, but it gets really, really bad, and we do feel like we suffer in silence by ourselves as well. I've been in hospitals in A&E. There was a time where I was in A&E, and goodness me, like the doctors, everyone's running around doing what they're doing. I've been left in a wheelchair, and I forgot what it was hurting me, like maybe my back or whatnot. I'm on fire, basically. It feels like someone's dropped molten lava on my back, and I can't move. Put it this way, if there was danger, I can't move, I'm not going anywhere. I can't run for my life, it's impossible. And they're just walking by, I'm like, help, 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 help. Obviously in full-blown tears and everything, and you in A&E, you're left there for hours on end, you know. So you go into A&E at 7 p.m, you could potentially find a bed up in one of the wards, that's what you're waiting for, 12 hours later. Very easily.
Yeah, I think also it doesn't really matter how old you are. So I've had instances where my daughter's been left in pain for like 5 hours, and we have a hospital passport where you're supposed, with children, you go straight to the ward, you don't have to sit in A&E. But it literally, if you get a doctor who doesn't understand what's going on, you know.
Do you feel like a lot of the doctors are not educated in the area as well?
I feel like if you go to the doctors, there's a few doctors who will be your consultants, and maybe like 2 nurses. Everybody else is just
winging it.
Yeah. Just no idea, like no idea.
There's also protocols. So when you do come in from the ambulance, they will like, alright, cool. So we know who you are, know your name. So this is what you normally take to help you with the pains and stuff like that. That's usually called a protocol. Everyone should have one, but it gets really sticky when you don't have one, and people will just like, okay, I've heard doctors be like, so what is it? What's wrong with you? Where's the pain? Sickle-cell. Oh, it's worse when you go up north, really. And it's just horrendous, really. And you just feel like you're more alone than what you're actually suffering with.
It is, and there's a lot of stigma that comes with it. So a lot of these guys get mistaken for people that are abusing pain meds, or the other side, when you get parents who are, I've gone in and I've said, look, I know she's not screaming in pain because she doesn't show pain in that way. And if you get her consultant, she'll come in and be like, give her the codeine or morphine that the baby needs. But you get a different doctor who's like, are you sure you're not over medicating her? You know, are you sure? And I'm like, Munchausen by proxy is a real diagnosis, and I don't think we should throw things like that around to parents, you know. But it's just, they'll be like, well, I've seen children with sickle cell and they don't actually act like this, but not every child is the same.
Yeah.
And you'd think they'd know that. Or I remember having to explain to a doctor at Great Ormond Street that chronic pain is different to acute pain experienced by somebody else. So she shouldn't look at the spectrum in the same way. And you're the doctor. Your
foundation is specifically about the mental health. Is that to do with parents, or what?
So anybody who's impacted by sickle cell, so it can be the individual warriors or people who have sickle cell themselves, or parents, siblings, carers, friends, anybody who, we all have a journey in this thing, and my daughter goes through something, I'm there with her all the time, so there's always going to be trauma, secondary trauma, or things like I said, hyperanxiety, depression, PTSD that I've experienced from just being there on that journey with her. And as harrowing as everything that I can talk to you about is, it is so normal in this community. I can pretty much expect every other parent to have gone through the exact same thing I have. So it was really important to me, for one, to validate all of these parents' feelings, because a lot of the time there isn't any service that thinks about the sibling who has to watch their brother or sister go through that, or the aunt or the friend, you know. So anybody who's impacted by sickle cell in any capacity can get access to free therapy, free wellness courses. There's a lot of work that we do with the hospitals about education and putting standards and policies in place to make sure that the hospitals are held accountable for how they treat children and people in general. Work in schools, again, to make sure that policies are upkept, again, accountability programs, employment spaces.
What can we, on the out, or who are not experiencing this, what can we do to help? I understand we can give blood, but how do you so obviously the part last weekend that went, there was loads of awareness, and I think there was loads of banks open, banks were open and whatnot. But outside of that, what can you do? Like I can't give blood because I just got a tattoo done not too long ago, so they say you can't do it. But so once I can, how can I help?
So there's great organizations like Unsickle My Cells or Sickle Khan who promote and really work hard to gaining more black blood donors. It's really important because black blood donation or BAME blood is better for BAME people, really. It lasts longer in the body, it's just healthier in the body, and it does so much for healing. So their organizations are really good. I think my thing to everybody is understanding your genome, because understanding if you're a trait carrier or not is the first step. And then having these conversations when you're talking to your friends or partners or whatever, because your life, like if I look at myself pre-baby to now, it's two completely different people. And had I had the correct education, maybe I would have made different choices and not been, where I am today. So I think it's really important to have the education, educate yourself, give blood if you can, and just be mindful. I think that's the thing for me. Be mindful of your friends around you who might have a condition, who might need you to say, actually sit down, actually let's not go out today, because it might be a harder day for them. Like Juslin said, rain, sun, wind can trigger, tight jeans can trigger a crisis. Wow. Yeah.
We live in a day of social media, really. So everything you can find on the net, information you can find on the net, but there are organizations out there that really specialize in bringing you information to obviously your posts and your feeds and stuff like that. Organisation like TSS UK, Screen Project as well. They do a really big campaign in terms of bringing awareness. So we have loads of different factions and loads of different individuals and organisations of bringing awareness out there in their own different way. But that is the best way. So I don't think there's any way that you can't understand or read sickle cell. It's as common as what goes viral nowadays, really. But it's just, I feel like sometimes, because it's to do with health and because it's to do with, because you don't feel, like you were saying, in terms of if it's not near you, you won't really know about it. Yeah. We tend to get put in the back, really, for that, really. So, and I just feel like that needs to start changing. The best thing to help fight against sickle cell, well, not when you have it, but it's information, it's a conversation. Yeah. Because if I tell you now, ZEZE, I have full sickle cell, and you tell me you have a trait, that just means that we're going to be smart about what we're going to do. And we can go into what a relationship, whether it is, knowing that, all right, cool, if we do this might happen, rather than not knowing and then just finding out.
Yeah. Because to be honest with you, I know that it's an important conversation to have, but I don't think I've been with one guy that said to me, do you have a sickle cell trait? Do you have sickle cell? Do you have sickle cell trait? And I was thinking, no, but that was the first time anyone has ever asked me that question. But it should be a very important question, especially amongst us as a community.
Yeah, I say that so often. I'd never had that conversation. Yeah. So I always say, how many times could I've landed in exactly the same position as I'm in now?
Right.
Because I don't know if any of my exes had sickle cell trait. We never spoke about it. So it's so important.
For you, Juslin, how's it been dating? Do you tell women? Because going back to the question when I was saying about when the guy asked me if I had sickle cell, when I think back now, if I'm being honest, I actually was offended when he asked me. I was almost like, why are you asking me that question for? But now having this conversation, I will definitely be asking these because it's something that you have to obviously take into consideration. So how's it been for you?
For me, it's I've been lucky to have people who really understand and who are willing to listen. Really, you have to kind of make sure. Sometimes it's sad because it's like, all right, cool. If you have this, then we're gonna end it right here and there. For me, I've been lucky. Like everyone I've been with, have been open-minded enough to listen and understand, and then they've even taken knowledge away as well. But I've been around people who have not had the traits at all. I've never had to go and speak to them and say, we're going to cut it off because of that reason. But it's important to actually ask, and it shouldn't be a taboo thing. It should be like, it's kind of like having a child. How are you really going to hide a child? You're really not. So it should be as normal as talking like that, really.
Before we started, you was explaining another area that can be affected by it. Go on.
Okay, so talking about priapism. Priapism is it's this kind of like a sickle crisis of the penis. It really happens only to males. So what it is it's painful erection. It's not the useful erection. You can't do anything with it. You can't even touch it. It's painful, rock hard. Liken it, all the guys as well, liken it to having Viagra, 3 or 4, you pop in pills, and it's just hard and hurts. You can't do anything, can't bend. It's not as glamorous as it is, but when that happens, you are amongst one of the top. I don't even know what other things could happen, but it's blue lights all the way. Blue lights getting to you, blue lights getting back there, because they have to give you treatment to alleviate, because it's basically blood. They have to alleviate that, and it's gonna be gruesome, but the treatment for that, so you got the penis there, and you got some long syringe that they have to go and put inside the tip.
Ew.
And draw out
the blood.
Draw out the blood to relieve the pressure. Ooh. Because if you don't relieve the pressure and you don't get there on time, impotence, you can even very well lose a genital. Is really, really bad, and it's taken very, very seriously.
And this has happened to you?
Yeah, it's happened to me. It's not something that you can get rid of, but it happens. And the embarrassing side is it just happens anytime, anywhere. Think anywhere.
Wow.
Yeah, so when you see me, if you see me, don't think it's anything that you've excited me or anything.
Well, it's not, I mean, I guess it's good that you could laugh about it and kind of make light of the situation. Another thing that I kind of just wanted to touch on as well is there a life expectancy with this?
Yes. Generally, we tend to be given some, but not everyone gets one. If you get life expectancy, then you must be really bad.
So have you been given life expectancy?
I've been given my life expectancy.
And what's your life
expectancy? When I was young, my doctor sat me down, my parents, and said that we don't think that Justin's going to go see past 21.
How old are you now?
34.
Amen.
Yeah, amen. See? But it's all in the mindset, and I just, imagine that. Yeah, so
how old were you when they told you that?
I think it was 18.
You was 18? Yeah. Oh, so you was fully, so how was that then living?
It's a countdown.
What?
These are the experts, right?
Yeah.
They're the experts, they study it, they know what's going on in your body through tests and stuff like that, but you're living it. So it's kind of like, you gotta weigh it up really and balance it out.
And what about for your daughter?
Yeah, she has been given her life expectancy.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's obviously, like Juslin said, really scary because she's 2 and she hasn't been given the longest time.
Like I said earlier, that must have just such a weight on you all the time.
Yeah.
And you're only young.
Yeah.
How old are you?
27.
That's a lot to deal with. I mean, at any age, but I feel like, your 20s and it's like a time where to have that on your shoulders. How does that feel?
I don't know. Honestly, it's thinking about it is depression, right? It feels like I have numbered days with this incredible human, and it feels horrible that could be it. But then obviously you hear Juslin and he's like, I've surpassed that and I'm doing great. So we have to be hopeful, but it's always, they told you, you know, but then again, I've been in positions where they've told me prepare, you know, like say goodbye. I've been in that position and we've come out of that position and then had the life expectancy.
If you don't mind me asking, what you don't have to say, did they, what was the age that they gave?
5.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Apart from your support group that you and a charity that you set up, when they tell you that, is there any sort of like counselling or any sort of, you know, support groups that they tell you that you can be a part of, or they kind of just feed you that information and then it's like, deal with it?
Yeah, it's on the relative basis, it's quite, here it is. I think I started having therapy this year, but we had such a crazy journey for the last 2 years. My daughter started having crisis when she was 4 or 5 months old. And it's been that that intense on a monthly basis, 2 weeks we're always in hospital. But it took about 2 years for a doctor to turn around and say, I think you've been through a lot. I think it was actually after that cannulation incident that I was telling you about where...
Oh yeah, you can... So what happened with that?
She was in crisis, having the splenic sequestration that I told you about, and she needed a transfusion, and obviously the only way to get the blood in is through the veins, and baby veins are really slippery, really tiny, and they just couldn't get a cannula in. And it took 27 times of attempts, unsuccessful attempts. Around cannula number 8, they managed to get it in, and she started having a transfusion for about 10-15 minutes, and then it fleshed, which just means that it fell out and the blood was just pooling in her leg at this point. So they had to take it out and start over again. And I remember being like to them, no, we need to try something else. We need to try something else. This isn't working. But they were like, no, the only way we can need to give her the blood and the only way we can get it in is through the cannula. So they was just, you know, piercing every single vein in her body to the point where this child is trembling. Like anyone comes near her, she's screaming. She doesn't want it. We've been at it for about 8 hours at this point. Because they go away, they give her half an hour, and then 3-4 more people, different people. It's like everyone was having a go. Like they kept calling everyone from around the hospital, let's get this person, let's get that person. And I kept saying, no more, just stop. Like we need to find a different way. I remember a doctor turned around to me and said, if you don't let us keep trying, if anything happens, you are responsible for what happens to your child. So now I'm fighting this. It's either I let them keep going, traumatizing my child, or I put my foot down. And I remember they were like, okay, well, the only thing we can do now is go through the bone or shave her head and go through the skull. And I said, no one's touching her, transfer me somewhere else. Literally, no one's touching her, transfer me through somewhere else. And we got transferred to Great Ormond Street again. And there was a specialist who was there. First thing they done was say, let's check her blood count, right? And when they checked it, she had enough blood in her body from the 8th cannula that she didn't need from cannula number 8 to number 27. They were just torturing her, right? Had they done a 5-second gas test, all the blood they could have taken, it's literally like it's like a drop of blood that they needed to check. Had they stopped to say, let's just check how much blood she received from this gas, from the mini transfusion that she had of those 10 minutes, they actually didn't need to damage her whole vascular system. So then she had no more access, and this child needs regular blood transfusions. She had to have surgery to put a port in to then now be able to enable her to have the regular transfusions. So at less than 1 years old, this baby already doesn't have any access to veins, which doesn't make her, prognosis that much better anyway. So yeah.
And services like that really, it's quite common. Everyone has a story, but my story was, Okay, so I was admitted in hospital, in pain and everything, and antibiotics are normal medication administered to help you get out of hospital and stuff like that. So they gave me something called cefalexin. I think I don't even know how old I was probably 12, 13. I never had it before, and obviously when you're when you're admitted, you're under their care and you trust them as well. So I got given cefalexin and I reacted straight away. I had 2 pound size coin lumps and bumps everywhere. Everything was itchy everywhere, and I couldn't breathe. My throat's closing up. I was in pain. I was crying. So they gave that. The reason why I'm telling you that is explaining that because next time I was admitted, I was given it again, and then after that, and again as well. So then it's a question of what's actually going on. Are we important enough to receive the best care or not? And that's why I commend mothers who have children who are sickle cell. I think they're much stronger and braver than people who are going through it themselves as well. One of my fondest memories, and I'll never forget this, was how my mum really she was suffering. This is really like, it touches me because part of the things that help someone in crisis is obviously massages and stuff like that, caressing, oil, hot water bowls. Those are natural ways of helping someone out of a crisis. I can remember this because I was like 9 or 10 and my leg was hurting. This must have been 10, 11 at night because them times back then you can stay over, your parents will stay over. And I think when you're young, your parents have to stay over, but as an adult, you're by yourself basically. So my mum's there, she's caressing my leg because it's helping. And she's been doing this for God knows how long, but for me, it just feels like 5 minutes. The poor woman's tired. And she had her head down and she was just doing this. And she was slowing down because she was sleepy. Right. And all I can think about is, oh, come on, Mum, carry on. And I wasn't looking, but I faced her and I saw her head down and she was just doing it like she's done. For me, I felt guilty.
Right, yeah.
I felt guilty. It's like, how am I putting my own mum through this?
But you're her child, so she's going to do that. Yeah, she's going to make sure you're okay first and foremost before herself.
I couldn't see it that way straight away.
Yeah.
So I carried that with me for a number of years, thinking. Then that's why I kind of took charge of my own health, and felt like, okay, I can only help myself. Obviously, I have people that help, and it's what I love about people who are able to support and understand. You ain't gotta know everything about it, but at least then you're able to support and acknowledge what people go through, really. Yeah.
Well, we have to wrap up now, which is really quick. How long was that? Okay. So
it goes quicker when you're sitting down.
I know, right? It does, right? Well, thank you so much for coming on, and we'll put all the details in the description box so people can know about the different charities. And thank you so much for coming on and sharing, because like I said at the beginning, I think these conversations are extremely important for us as a community, and definitely kind of to bring awareness to these things, even when it's not trending or it's not a special awareness day, which I think is obviously amazing. But we need to make sure we keep our foot on the gas so that, you know, it's not just once in a while. So thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Guys, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, share, tell your friends, tell everybody. We out. Bye.